Morning, my name's Simon. Welcome to Front End Chatter, the podcast, and welcome to the launch of Triumph's 2024 Tiger 900s. Hello everybody and welcome to Front End Chatter. Now there's something I never thought I'd be saying on a launch. It's Front End Chatter's first launch. How about that? And that particular honour, should we call it an honour, has fallen to Triumph's 2024 Tiger 900s. For there are 3 of them, where previously there were 5. So Triumph have streamlined the range. We now have the sort of the base GT, which is the unadorned, naked as the day it was born base model, with no accessories, and then you have the 2 top line models, the GT Pro and the Rally Pro. This is the Rally Pro that we're on now. I'll get into the differences in a second, but they're pretty straightforward. And the reason for streamlining the range, Triumph say, is simplicity, and also, I guess there's a cost factor because people were simply not buying the in-between models. So anyway, assuming that you want the full fat, all the accessories and all the Carlos Fandango bits of the 2 Tiger models, we have here the Rally Pro, and in front, I think that's Bruce, on the GT Pro. And the differences between those two, as they were before, pretty straightforward. The GT Pro is the kind of the road version with the 19-inch front, the shorter travel suspension, and the cast wheels. And the Rally Pro, this fella, is the 21-inch front, and it's on the longer travel suspension. And there are a couple of other differences. The GT Pro comes on Marzocchi suspension, and the Rally Pro, this fella, comes on Showa, much longer travel springs. I think it's 240mm at the front, and I think the GT Pro is about 170 or 180 at the front. So that's the differences between the two, as they were before. And it's fair to say that although this is a 2-day launch, and we're going to be doing a bit of off-roading later on, apparently, it's not a massive overhaul for the Tiger 900. Fair to say this falls under the sort of fairly substantial tweak category of new bike. So, quick potted history, and I'm not going to go right back to 1993 and the Steamer Tiger, the very first one, which is a glorious thing. I keep looking at them second hand on eBay and occasionally on Auto Trader and thinking, they're good looking things, big old heavy lump, agricultural. Do you know what, funny enough, I saw one the other day. We were on the Suzuki GSXS 1000 GX launch in Portugal, and I met one in the traffic and rode alongside him for a while. He'd had it custom painted white. It looked and it sounded awesome. It's a really cool looking thing. Anyway, that was a long time ago, the old Steamer. So anyway, in 2020, Triumph introduced the T-Plane Crank Tiger. Now, if you want to see a video explaining how the T-Plane Crank works in great detail, go to our sister site, could we call it that, of Bennett's Bike Social. Go to their YouTube channel and check out the Tiger launch from 2020 when I go into the T-Plane Crank's workings in great detail. Suffice to say, this bike still has a T-Plane Crank, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I think the easiest thing to do is to whiz through the things that are the same as the previous bike, because there's quite a lot of it is identical. So as per the previous bike, we still have a steel tube trellis frame, we still have a detachable aluminium subframe, we have I think it's reshaped, but we still have a 20 litre tank. We still have, again, the same wheel sizes, the same wheels. We actually have the same suspension, as I say, the Showa fully adjustable on the front of the Rally Pro, and the Marzocchi fully adjustable on the GT. And on the GT Pro only, gosh, it's a bit windy up here. On the GT Pro only, there is electric screwdrivers for the rear, so you can adjust the preload and the damping, I think, from the dash. But it's not semi-active, which actually I'm kind of quite happy about. So much is the same. I mean, and the general outline of the bike is pretty much the same as well, although there is new bodywork. They've reshaped the fairing slightly to duck the air, hot air, away from the rider's knees. That was a feature of the previous Tiger from 2020, which I actually quite liked, getting my knees warm. But I guess in hot weather it could get a bit too hot. So they've redesigned the front end just a touch. But the big change, given that everything else is pretty much the same, is the engine. It's still 888cc, which it has been for quite a long time. And it's still T-plane, as I said, but I'll get to that in a minute. But the big news is that it makes more power. So we are now up to, from 94 bhp, we're now up to 107 at higher RPM. It's now making 107 at 9,500, up from, I think, about 8,750, which Triumph say, according to their maths, don't trust my maths, is about 13% more power, more peak power. And it makes slightly more peak torque. It's up from 64 pound-foot to 66 pound-foot, but it's at slightly lower revs. It was just above 7,000 RPM, and it's now just below 7,000 RPM. And that's kind of, I think it's, I mean, Triumph haven't said this, but I believe they could probably describe it as class-leading power, because it is more than, certainly in the rally sports rivals, spikes like the Africa Twin, I guess the 890 Adventure, maybe, well, Ducati's Desert X is slightly more horsepower actually, but it's, and it's more than BMW's new F900 GS. However, even though the peak torque is up, it still makes less torque than all its rivals. I think the Africa Twin makes substantially more torque, but it is a bigger engine, and more torque comes with more CC as a rule. But Triumph haven't gone down the big CC route. Maybe they've saved that for 2027, who knows. But what they have done is tuned it. Now they say they've taken some of their learnings from Moto 2 to basically attack the top end. Wow, there's a bit of wind here. Basically attack the top end of the motor. So basically an engine is a pump, and the more air you can get in and out of it, the more efficient that pump is. And if you want it to make more power, you either make it bigger or you make it more efficient. Now the way to get more air in and out is to open up, well, open up the intakes, open up the inlet valves, make them larger, make the exhaust port less restrictive, basically get the thing free flowing. And then once you've done that, you need to get your fuel burning better as well, so you're raising compression. And all of this is something that Triumph have done. So on the 2024 Tigers, we have longer intake trumpets by about 15 mil. It has larger intake valves, it has more radical cam timing, lift has been increased, it has reshaped exhaust ports, and now oval as opposed to, I guess, round, which again is to aid gas flow. And we've gone down from 2 catalysts in the exhaust to 1 catalyst. And it has new pistons, I say, because the compression ratio is now up to something like 13:1. We're just pulling up here for a split second. So yeah, all that basically gives us, allows the engine to basically rev a bit harder. And if it revs a bit harder, it can make its peak, it can make torque for longer. And if it makes torque for longer in the rev range, it'll make more peak power. And that's exactly what it's doing. Ooh, here we go. So yeah, so we have more peak power and a smidge more torque. And I have to say, the engine feels much, much smoother as well. Now, I've spoken to Triumph because vibration from the T-plane crank was a bit of an issue. Now, just briefly, the T-plane crank is effectively trying to unbalance the engine. So with the old 270-degree crank in the old sort of Tiger 800 it was called. Very smooth engine. And that kind of didn't give you much of a tractive feel. It was a charismatic engine. It had a character, but it wasn't that sort of vibey character that you're looking for. And then, I suppose in a way that some parallel twins are now, well, most parallel twins are 270 degree to mimic a V-twin. Triumph wanted to give the engine a bit more of a vibe, so they deliberately unbalanced it. And if you, I suppose the best way of looking at the crank is literally, if you look at it end on, the crank pins are arranged in the shape of a T. Now on that bike, I was a little bit concerned on the launch about the vibes, because it did vibrate a fair bit, especially when you got up to cruising speed, which is around about 5,000 RPM. This bike, sort of to mitigate those vibes, Triumph have rubber mounted the bars, but it's quite a subtle rubber mounting. You can't feel any movement, so it's not as like some manufacturers, when they rubber mount bars, the steering has quite a lot of play in it. This doesn't. It still feels really direct. And also the seat is thicker. Now Triumph say they've made a thicker seat. It's 10mm thicker. That has sort of a couple of... They say they've done it for comfort. It does raise the seat height by 10mm, unsurprisingly. So we are a little bit taller than the previous model Triumph. So the GT, just for a few stats, is 820 to 860. It's adjustable. Excuse me, guys. Nip across here. And the Rally Pro is 860 to 880. And you can get a low seat option, which drops it by 20mm. So you could technically, if you've got a GT Pro, go down to 800mm. And then if you've got shorter tie bars or longer tie bars, can't remember, you could drop the seat height even lower. But they say they haven't done that for the vibration. They've just done that for sheer comfort. And it is a very comfy seat, I have to say. It's flatter. It's not as tapered. It's a little bit wider, I think, maybe, where your bum actually sits, which is good. Here we go, twisty roads. It was raining last night, so we've had wet roads this morning. And now it looks like they've dried out a little bit, so we might be able to tramp on a bit, perhaps get out of rain mode, which is fairly easy to do, he says. And rain, I'm indicating now, let's not do that. There you go, fairly easy. And turn up. Rider, don't want that. I want sport. Should we go for sport? Close the throttle. Okay, if you say. There we go, we're in sport mode now. Good. Let's see if we can get a bit of performance out of this thing. The roads are still fairly slippery, so can't go too mad. A little bit of caution here. So anyway, where was I? Sorry, yes, I'm getting distracted. Yeah, it's still got a bit of go in it. Do you know the thing about these Tigers, and I'll sort of do, as usual, I'll do a conclusion at the end. The Tigers are extremely well equipped compared to their rivals. So for the price, which I'll come to, you get cruise control, you get heated grips, you get heated seats, you get adjustable screen, you get hand guards, you get fully adjustable suspension, you get a USB port now, that's new. I mean, heated seats is standard. It's pretty good going. I think most of these rivals you can't even get heated seats. Oh, you see the little flashy lights? That's new. That's a bit of a Honda trick. I think maybe BMW do it now as well. So under hard braking, you get both lights flashing, and the indicators, the front indicators, are now running lights as well. So they're on permanently. Let's see if Toad from Visor Down is going to make a pass here. Yeah, I think he is. I'm sure I've been up this road before. You see there's nothing coming here. Let's go around the outside of this old boy. Whoa! It's still a bit slippery. There we go. It didn't take much for those lights to come on, does it? This road is ridiculous. Oh, yes. Yes, it's got some go in it, this motor. So yeah, anyway, so let's talk about prices really quickly. Sorry, this has been a bit chaotic, but we're talking about 14 grand for the GT Pro, and about 14 and a half for this, the Rally Pro. It does come with some fancy paint schemes. This one, this lovely grey and orange, or red, is actually 500 quid more. So you're looking at 15 grand, best part of, for this fella here. But like I say, you do get an awful lot for that. It is really, really well equipped to standard. And anyway, that's kind of it, really, to be honest. What else do we have that's new? Oh yeah, we have the Tiger 1200 style clocks now, instead of that fairly controversial dash before, where it was kind of like it was really hard to read, it was quite cluttered. Now we've dropped to this fairly straightforward. It's probably cheaper for Triumph, to be honest, as well, just to make one clock for both models. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else they've changed. No, I think I've got to the end of it, yes. I mean, it is worth pointing out that there is this incredibly virtuous circle that they've got into. I mean, it's not rocket science tuning the top end of an engine to get more power, but it is engine science, I suppose. And by making the pump more efficient, they've actually improved, I saw that, thanks Toad. They've made fuel economy, they've improved that by, I think they said 9%, so they're now talking about 60 miles per gallon on their testing, which you're looking at 200 plus from the 20 litre tank, 200 miles, which is good. Emissions are down, so it makes fewer emissions, which I suppose is always good for the environment. Oh, it's getting a bit misty and a bit chilly up here. Oh yeah, there you go, see, look, the old lights come on. Look at this heated seat. Should we put the grips in? The grips go on like that, and the heated seat is that one there. Look at that. Let's warm ourselves up a bit. Where was I? Yeah, virtuous circle. Yes, lower emissions, and they've also increased service intervals, which they're very keen to point out. They're now up to 18,000 for a valve clearance check, which was previously, I think it was 12,000. Can't have been valves at 12,000. Surely that must just be major service. Anyway, it's improved, and they say it's 27% cheaper over a 3-year life cycle, which is good. It's all good. So, and the prices are reasonably equivalent. I think they've gone up a little bit. They're pretty much equivalent to what they were before. And I have to say, I mean, again, I'll talk about this later on, but just looking at the bike, it has got, I mean, it's assembled in Thailand, as most Triumphs are these days. Oh, look at that, it's dramatic, isn't it? That's all nice and misty up there. I have to say the build quality is exceptional, or should we say the finish quality? The paint looks lustrous and deep. Anyway, we're now getting into some misty stuff in the mountains, so I've rabbited enough. I'll shut up. We're going to do a bit more riding, and then I'll come back at the end of the ride and tell you how it feels and talk about its rivals.
Well, that has been an impressive 2 days riding Triumph's 2024 Tiger 900s, the Rally Pro and the GT Pro. And as usual, I'll explain to you a little bit beforehand what we've done. So we've ridden the GT Pro, fair bit of on-road riding, a little bit of sort of dual carriageway stuff, but not a great deal. It was mostly really nice, classic Spanish, Malaga, twisty black top, really kind of like through canyons, pretty slimy on the yesterday morning. It had been raining, so it was a bit damp, but by the afternoon we got a good go on the GT Pro, and of course we rode the Rally as well, the Rally Pro on the road. And then today, this morning, we've been out doing a bit of off-road riding on the just on the Rally Pro, and yeah, did a fair old distance actually. We did a good sort of 4 or 5 hours of riding, which is quite a lot for me. So what do you need to know? The most important thing about this bike, as I say, I've been through the changes kind of fairly roughly. The big thing is the engine, and it is different. It is a different animal. There's a couple of things. The vibration is still there, but it's a lot less. It seems to have all the top edges taken off it. It seems to be smoothed out. So yes, it's still lumpy. Yes, as you get nearer to cruising speed and the engine speed picks up, you can still feel that sort of vibration, but it's less intrusive than it was on the original bike. Now, with the original bike, the 2022 2020 Tiger, I wasn't quite sure if the vibes were bad enough for people to be significant, for people to notice it. And I think there has been some, what one might say, market resistance. There's been some comments. I think some people have been put off buying the bike because of that vibration. This one is a lot better. Now, Triumph say the only thing they've done to mitigate that vibration is rubber damp the handlebars. They've got these little rubber washers in them. Again, like some manufacturers, there's a bit of play sometimes. You can feel the bars moving. This you can't. You've still got a really direct steering feel, but they are rubber mounted. But the engine feels so much more different. It's like, is that really enough? Is that all the changes? And I can't help wondering if some of the smoother engine feel comes from its improved combustion, because that's the other big change with this new top end, with this improved breathing, which again, I'm slightly cynically not sure if it's because there's some kind of new catalyzer technology has allowed them to go down to just using one cat. Suddenly it opens up the exhaust, it makes it more free flowing, it's certainly louder, it sounds nicer, it's a lot louder than the previous model. You can really hear that exhaust note when you crack it on, it really does bark. So I don't know if that has kind of allowed Triumph engineers to say, aha, right, we have a freer flowing exhaust potentially, therefore we can then open up and do a bit of head work. And because, as I said again in the commentary, it's not rocket science, it is engine science, it's pretty well known stuff. And anyway, so the bottom line is the engine feels smoother, still got the vibration, off-road, still has that tractability. In fact, it's improved now because down at the bottom end, just off the bottom end of the throttle, I mean, it's been a long time since anybody criticised Triumphs for having snatchy fueling. They have generally really, really good fueling. This has got, it's immaculate at the bottom end. It's almost a little bit too woolly. You are starting to think now about the gearing because it's quite tall geared, and I'm wondering if maybe a shorter first off-road might be more useful on those really low speed hairpins, which all hairpins are low speed when I'm riding. But there we go. And you know, for me, off-road as a sort of somebody said while I was riding, they said, you're too hard on yourself, because I always describe myself as a complete novice, which I am. I'm not a natural off-road rider. I can see, when I see people riding properly off-road, I can understand the physics and I can see the body language, but I'm too old for it now. So I'm not a natural to it. And I think this bike, with its 107 horsepower, which I'll talk about the actual sort of performance difference in a minute on the road, off-road, to be honest, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference to me in terms of power. I can't use it anyway. And the thing that counts most against the Tiger, the Rally Pro off-road, is it is a big bike still. It is a physically large thing. It is not a Tenere 700, which is a lot lighter and a lot more kind of like, I could pick that up more easily. This, it still can get away from you quite easily. But that's just me being completely rubbish. On road, the extra power, I've got to be perfectly honest, it's not immediately noticeable. You'd have to ride it back to back. You'd have to jump off the old bike and jump on this one to tell the difference in its engine performance like that. You can definitely tell, even with quite a few months gap since I last rode the old 900, you can definitely tell the engine's smoother. But that top end power, I mean, it's there, it definitely revs more freely. But it hasn't lost any tractability, still got that beautiful kind of triple spread of torque. In fact, the torque is spread even more, even more widely now. It's even more flexible. Same gearing as the old bike, which is a bit odd. You thought they'd have taken the opportunity to change the gearing, but so that's the engine. Yeah, it's a really great thing. And on the road, dynamically, this is the better bike because of the 19-inch front wheel. It's just a more confident feedback from the front. It's more confident in terms of its steering, and because it's got more road orientated rubber. So this is the better road bike. However, I think I've said on sort of previous videos for our sister channel, Bennett's Bike Social, if you're going to buy a bike that's styled like this, you really want wire wheels, don't you? And you really want slightly more off-road rubber. Even if, like me, you're a complete noob off-road, you still want the look. I mean, that's why you're doing it. So in that respect, when we get into the actual kind of competition for these bikes, this one, it's quite easy to know what the competition is. It's Africa Twins, it's KTM 890 Adventures, it's BMW's new F900 GS. This, I'm not quite so sure what the rivals for this are. I'm thinking, is it Yamaha's Tracer 9 GT Plus? because they're a similar-ish sort of price. You're talking 14.5 for that bike, and you're talking, what, 14 for this. This has got one accessory. I mean, both of these bikes come absolutely loaded, like the GT does. This has got heated seat, which the GT hasn't, so it's got one up on it there. Heated seats are standard. Again, you might think it's a bit pointless. Have you ever tried a heated seat? It's worth having in some situations. And obviously it comes with heated grips, and it comes with the handguards and the adjustable screen and the dash. It's now got a USB port in the dash. It comes with a center stand. It seems crazy to say it, but so many manufacturers don't fit a center stand as standard. You know, what can you do? Triumph do. So it has got a lot of extra stuff on it. So, you know, if you're not that fussed, if you're not as vain as me, and you're not that fussed about the look of the bike in the sense that, you know, it's got adventure styling, but it hasn't really got the cahoots to back it up. I mean, sure, it'll go off broken roads and a bit of gravel, no problem. But yeah, if you're like me, then you'd kind of maybe go for the Rally Pro, which at 14.5 is in the same sort of price bracket as the GT Plus. But I've actually got a list of prices here for its rivals. And it's quite interesting. So yeah, Triumph are talking about this making more power than any rival, you know, than its rivals, and it is more powerful than Honda's Africa Twin with its 101 horsepower. This is 107. Don't forget. The F900 is they claim 105 for it. It's still 107. It's just a little bit more. KTM's 890 Adventure, 104 horsepower, 107. We've beaten that. Only Ducati's Desert X with its 110 horsepower kind of aces the Tiger. The thing about the Desert X though, it's over 15 grand, and that's in a real kind of base spec, I think. I don't think that you get heated grips for that. I could be wrong, forgive me if I am. But certainly it's not quite as well equipped in other areas as the Tiger. So yeah, that is a little bit more powerful. But the interesting thing, all those bikes I've mentioned, the Africa Twin, the F900 GS, the KTM 890 Adventure and the Desert X, they all make more torque than this bike. Because by and large, they're all larger, considerably larger or slightly larger engines. So although we've got class-leading power, we haven't really got class-leading torque. I have to say, again, in use, I mean, you know, if you want comparisons, then I think I could probably be right in telling you the 890 Adventure R is still probably the more natural off-road bike. It's slimmer, it's the parallel twin, it's just easier to use off-road, it's got a lower centre of gravity, it's a more compact bike almost than this. Africa Twin, it's kind of, Africa Twin is in this wheelhouse, it's in this area, so I guess. F900 GS, bit of an unknown quantity because nobody's ridden one yet, I don't think. So, yes, anyway, so there is the prices. And I think that's where we are, you know, it's actually quite an easy one to sum up. Normally after these events, I take ages to cogitate and ruminate and try and think about what I'm going to say and get the right words out. And I don't always get it right. Well, with this one, it's actually quite straightforward. If you're familiar with the previous Tiger, the 2020 bike, these are very, very similar, but better in a couple of areas. Namely, the engine is smoother and it makes more power. And it has a nicer dash, I guess, arguably if you want to say that. And it has actually a more comfortable seat. That is worth mentioning. This new flatter seat, it is comfy. It's really nice. I've ridden the old Rally Pro around Scotland. I did a big tour of the NC 500 on it, I think. I've done it on the 1200 as well. And I went around Ireland on it. I did some big miles on that bike. And initially, when you first get on it and you pull away, you do feel those engine revs and you do kind of wonder, is this going to be a comfortable experience? When I took the Tiger 1200 around the NC 500, it vibrated so much, the bar end fell out. And that was noticeably vibey. Given the choice, I'd much rather take the new bike for sure, because the difference is enough to notice. But anyway, I'd be quite happy to take either of them because, to be honest, they've got everything you could possibly need. You can just plug in and go, which is really good. So, suspension's the same, frame's the same, geometry's the same, the dynamics between the two bikes are the same. So yeah, it's been quite an easy one, which is not bad. It's a good thing actually. It's been quite so easy because this is I think the first launch we've done for Front End Chatter. It's the first video we've done for Front End Chatter. I hope it all comes out. I hope it all works. I'd like to say, please like and subscribe. Leave your comments down below. I'll come back to you. I might even sit down with Mufka and have a chat about the bikes. We'll certainly talk about it on the podcast, so you can get that from your iTunes and your usual podcast places, but most specifically, you can get it from Bennett's Bike Social website, which is where you should download it if you can. And I guess I can say, get your insurance with Bennett's. Why not? Why not? Even if it's not on their channel, get your insurance with Bennett's. Go and check out bikesocial.co.uk if you're in the UK. Become a Bennett's Rewards member. Yes, anyway, apart from that, I think I've covered anything. If I haven't, I think just about, don't forget, 18,000 mile service intervals as well. Hey, that's amazing, really, isn't it? I'm sorry, just one last thing. It is pretty cool for a manufacturer to bring a bike out and say, okay, we've made it more flexible, we've broadened the spread of torque, it's actually got a little bit more torque, it's got a little bit more power, the engine's the same size, it's more efficient, so it drinks less fuel. When they fill these things up, it's so nice to see 250 miles come up on the range, predicted range, and it can do it too, which is great. It's only a 20 litre tank, so that is pretty fuel efficient. I think we were getting about 46 to 50 miles to the gallon, but there's a lot of stop-start riding on these launchy things, and some of the riding's fairly energetic, some of it less energetic. This one was in the middle, it wasn't like a frantic pace. So I'd say you get 46 to 50, you probably get into the 55s if you took it fairly easily. So yeah, 200 miles plus from the tank is definitely on. I was just about to sum up and go away then. I'm going to stop talking now. Anyway, leave your comments below, leave your questions below. Over the next couple of weeks I'll come back and answer them. And thank you very much for watching and listening.